This is Trig Point, episode 21. My name's Serena, and sitting across from me is my co-host Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hello, everyone.
So, it has been a slightly,
Busy, hectic, eventful.
eventful, but not in a good way month for me.
Right.
Out of the 4 weeks, I was sick for 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, you feel better
hacking.
now?
I'm actually glad my voice is working now because there was a time when I was so nasally, everything was stuck in my... It was bad.
It wasn't great.
No, it wasn't. Oh, it was really bad. And everyone at work kind of got affected by it as well. Like, it was going around. Although it wasn't work that got me, it was Andrew who got me. Because his work colleague coughed on him. And he had it worse, to be honest. He was down for 3 weeks.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Yeah, normal cough medicines doesn't really help. Like, hacking cough, you go to sleep at night and you wake up and you feel like your lungs is going to come out. It wasn't fun. So that was that. So I'm like, oh, Peter wants me to record next week. Let's hope my voice and everything is back. Otherwise, he'll have to carry the whole show.
That's not going to happen. Especially not with our topic.
Oh, no. Since you're the one who... I read the book first and you're reading it second, you should be the one who talk more about it. You'd remember it more.
Yeah.
Although I did reread it. Another thing that happened was WWDC, the Worldwide Dev Conference, the Apple conference. And that happened while I was sick, so I didn't actually realize it was happening until I woke up and I saw on my micro.blog feed that it was going on. I'm like, oh, crap, I'm so sick. I didn't even get like all excited about this, all the new features that were going to come out. So I've been playing around with iOS 12 beta, which was kind of fun. Peter has no interest in this whatsoever.
No.
I was showing him like the new Memoji where you could get to, create an avatar with, your face and everything, so you could use FaceTime with your Animoji face, or when I could send him short messages with an Animoji thing.
And here I'm just going like, why would you want to do something like that? Like, the whole point of doing FaceTime, isn't it so I can see you?
Yeah, but
not like your emoji.
No. But then the thing is, if I wake up and my hair's all over the place, I haven't washed my face yet, and like I look terrible, I could put my Memoji on.
When that happens, I just call and not do FaceTime.
No, but the idea is if you called me, then I could just use that instead of like, hanging up on you and then calling you and then explaining the situation why. But unfortunately, I've only tried this feature twice.
Yep.
One with you and one with Cleo.
Yep.
And you both have terrible internet connections.
Right,
so neither of you can see my face. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. If anything, it was worse because with Cleo, she saw my real face because the other one wouldn't go through yet.
Yeah.
So she saw how disheveled my hair was, and
Did she go like, what?
well, she the thing is, all she saw was my face in one static position,
right?
Because nothing updated,
So
it just had that one expression for the whole time we were talking on the phone. Because she's in China right now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And she was behind a VPN and all that sort of stuff, so everything was so slow. And I'm like, the whole point of me calling you was to try out this feature that you can't even see. Oh,
like, yay.
But the thing I think I have more fun with... Okay, Memoji might be a bit, like, gimmicky, and only for the people who likes to play with the Bitmoji. Have you heard of Bitmoji, the app, the one where you could create stickers all with your face on it? Like, you create your own avatar and you put them in all the different situations, whether you're sleepy or whether you're at work or whatever, and you create stickers. Okay. People use that. Anyway, I don't, but this would be for them. Like, Memojis would be for them.
Yep.
Now with the other thing, the big thing was Siri shortcuts, which is a way for Apple, it's Apple's new way of creating automation on your iOS devices. So you can link a trigger word or a phrase or whatever that would activate a series of actions.
Yep.
Open up application A and then application B or something. Like, so when a perfect example is when I get off work, I could just say, oh, hey Siri, I'm on my way home. It will calculate how long it takes me to get home. It'll send an SMS to Andrew telling him I'm leaving the office now and how long it'll take me to get home. It will open up my podcast app so that I could choose the thing I'm going to listen to on the way home, and then it'll open up my maps with the directions home, because I open up Waze to see whether there's a quicker shortcut to get home sometimes. So that all gets done with one trigger, which right now can't
you have to do it, at the moment, you have to kind of do it each individual thing separately.
You're just like, oh, yeah. Hey,
open maps.
Send this message, and then now open this app. Now open up the So, I'm looking forward to when that happens. So right now on beta, it's actually pretty good beta.
Yep.
Not too many crashes, not any weird stuff happening. There was a strange thing happening before when I couldn't log into Netflix on my new on beta, because apparently when I'm using the correct username and password, I think whatever they're sending through, like the Netflix app, not Apple itself, but some apps have weird things that happens. Yeah. And when there's a new version out, some of the encoding or something goes weird. So no matter what I did, they won't let me log in. Right. But now they fixed it. So there's like weird bugs like that. But apart from that,
it's
everything.
Beta. You expect that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of fun.
What else have you done? You've done a lot of things. This it's been pretty eventful for you.
Most recently, and this was on what, Thursday, I went and recorded another podcast. I'm sorry, Peter. I'm cheating on you, like that's left, right, and center. I'm recording all these other podcasts. So on Thursday, I went and recorded for Owen. That's Andrew's friend. He has a podcast on Star Wars X-Wing, which is a board game where you have figurines of Star Wars spacecrafts fighting each other on this massive board, which is kind of fun. Yep. So he has a really popular podcast. They actually started at the same time as us, but I think they have like
a lot more people.
A lot more listeners than we do, because they're a very niche podcast. So, and they talk about the latest news about this game and stuff like that. And recently, they've added a new segment. But it's actually a whole episode. So they're special episodes. They're planning on doing this once a month, where they're just doing a radio show. Is that a way? Radio theater? I don't know what you know. So it's a story set in the Star Wars universe before the original episodes and stuff like that. Yep. And it's not got anything to do with any of the Skywalker family, which is refreshing. And it's about this one guy who plays both sides of the war. He helps the Empire, but at the same time he might help the rebels. Or you could say he doesn't help either side, he's just helping himself, and whichever side gets him out of trouble, he'll help. So there's 2 episodes already, but my character gets introduced in the 3rd episode. This story is called the podcast called Hell of a Pilot. And I'm not allowed to talk about what my character is, because she's a new character that gets introduced and they want to keep it a secret. But I am not a good guy.
Really, Serena? That's such a surprise.
Well, I'm not a main character. Like I'm not. I don't think I'm the big bad. But I'm one of the baddies, apparently. So it was really fun because it's all scripted out. Unlike this one, where we barely know what we're talking about until, when we sit down. It's all scripted out. The script is amazing. And they give me the directions. They'll be like, "Oh, say that line again, but with more
gusto,
or more emotion, less emotion. Say it with a British accent, and all that sort of stuff." It's that kind of. It's fun, and they're short scenes, right? They have a whole long, 30-minute episode, 15-minute episodes or whatever, right? But each scene is like 2 or 3 minutes long, and we record it by scene and we do it over and over again until the guy's happy with it. But it's still fun because you're trying to remember how you say certain lines and deliver it the same way or in a different way if they didn't like it. And it's also really, really relaxing to know that after I finish recording, I just walk away. Someone else would do the editing. I don't need to worry a single thing about anything.
He just going, bye now.
Yeah, like I enjoyed the pizza, and now I'm gonna leave. So yeah, like we went to his house. We played a bit of was it Sushi Go, the party one? That was actually pretty fun. Then we ate some pizza, and then we got recording, and then afterwards we went home. We were done in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that was it was fun. Okay, so that's my eventful month.
Yep.
Now your eventful month. I came in and Peter made me play a game.
Yeah.
Before anything happened,
Yeah.
I came in and he's like, okay, I want you to play this game because I want to talk about it.
Yeah, so the game recently got released. It's called Detroit Become Human.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who look, it's not a game for everyone, to be fair. Okay, this is the type of game because
I found it enjoyable. But
yeah, we would like this type of game though. Like, look, it's not an action game, so you know, it's not really an RPG either. So
No.
basically what it is, it's an interactive movie.
yeah,
So imagine, you know, those
Rain.
huh?
There was a game called Rain that kind of reminds me of this.
Heavy Rain.
Yeah, Heavy Rain. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the thing.
the same makers made that.
Oh,
That's
okay,
why-
that's why. That's why.
Yeah. So people who don't know, Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, and this human, Detroit Become Human is all made by the same company, Quantico Dreams. So the premise is we're living in a world where androids
Exist.
and they do all the, you know, boring tasks for humans.
They're slaves.
They're slaves, basically. But it talks about how some of these androids starts becoming deviants. They basically start acting out. And the question is then...
Have a mind of their own, and they decided that they don't want to do all these boring tasks that we've assigned them.
not necessarily like that, but...
They want some rights.
Okay, so there's 3 characters, and one of the character is like that. Like he's like going for, I want rights for androids and stuff. But so one character does that. One main character is, all she cares about is trying to protect this little girl.
Okay.
Because she was in charge. Like she was the household robot.
Yeah,
right?
she's the caretaker.
She's the caretaker. But then she sees the father abusing her, and then she basically breaks out of her order and
kidnaps the kid.
Well, basically,
Yeah.
they run off.
Yeah.
They become fugitives.
Yep.
So that's.
You know, that was what I was thinking when I played this first scene, and you said that. Okay, so this first scene is that this android walks into a crime scene, and you find out that this android is a negotiator, and that there's a hostage situation. And as part of the first chapter that Peter made me play, but suggested I play, is that you as an android walk into the scene and you're trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
So you look at clues and you kind of figure out why this android acted out and why he's now taking this little girl hostage. And the android killed the dad, right?
Yes.
And so at that point, when I saw that the dad was killed or something, and that the android took the father's gun, at one point I was thinking, wait, did the father abuse the kid? And is that why the android acted out? Because he's not actually taking the kid hostage. He's just trying to keep her safe and you know, take her away from the dad and to kill the dad. That's what I thought the situation was.
Not quite.
Not quite. But you're saying that there's another character.
There's another character, yeah.
Does that.
But yeah, so the first character that you play as in the game is Connor, which is the detective droid.
Yep.
So you've played these 3 characters and you go through the whole story.
Yep.
And in as you go through the story, you can make certain decisions, how you side with certain people or what you do with certain people. The good thing about this game is that sometimes it forces you to make a decision like really quickly.
Yeah, like you have like a conversation with other characters on the scene, and then it will have a small pop-up asking you how you want to respond.
Yeah.
Now, since I was playing this for the first time and I'm not really familiar with the controls and everything, I suddenly see this pop-up of these words, and I'm trying to understand what each of these words mean. Like, oh, this is a response.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a timer that's asking me to choose a response. Wait, I don't even understand what each of these responses mean. Oh, now I have to choose one, find the icon, find the button on my control because I'm not really familiar with a PlayStation remote, and then press it before the timer runs out. I'm getting really stressed out here. Right, which kind of makes sense because you're in a hostage situation.
Yeah. They're not gonna wait for you to like slowly think about how am I gonna respond to you.
Yeah, although you'd reckon if they want to make this seem like a realistic Android experience. I'm assuming computer brains move faster, so you should be given a little bit more time while your computer brain is like whirling through all the possibilities before you choose an answer. But yeah, no, it was like very real time, and so I'm guessing once you're used to the controls and everything, it becomes a quicker process. Yeah. But I was actually quite happy with my result.
You got the arguably the best result in that scene.
The best possible result. But the thing is, at the end of the scene, okay, because I'm trying to save this little girl, right? Yeah. So, and I do end up saving the girl. Yeah. But in the process, the android who had acted up gets destroyed. Yeah. And I only was able to do that because I lied to the android. Yeah. Right? Because I'm a negotiator, right?
You lied to me.
Yeah, the android essentially says, you lied to me as he dies. Yeah. And you see on the screen, like this little note that says, what was it? Like it affected your stability. Your mental stability. And I read this, I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about my own mental health while I was trying to save this kid. And the moment that popped up, I'm like, oh, I know what this game is going to be. Like, what was that movie recently? Do androids dream of electric sheep? What's the Blade Runner? Blade Runner 2046, the new one. The idea that the guy was, an android, and he because of certain actions he does, he becomes unstable, right? Yeah. So I was reading, like, oh, this is very familiar. Oh crap! Did I make the wrong choice? Like by helping this kid, did I just make a terrible choice?
So the one thing I really enjoy about this game is there is a lot of outcomes. Each particular, so there's like 30
odd possible endings.
Yeah, so there's 30 odd segments in the game.
Okay.
So each of the characters probably get like 12 to 13 segments.
Uh-huh. The decision tree is really big.
Yeah. Because each scene has multiple options. Yeah. And it affects how the ending happens.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about this game is you can actually kill off people straight away. Yeah. Like if you're unsuccessful in certain things. So, for example, in one scene as a fugitive, you try and hide your way and you try to sneak your way to the train station. Yep. So you try to open up an umbrella as the cop is walking by to cover your face and stuff like that. And if you fail it, you can get discovered, and then you have to like run off somewhere else. And you can fail. If you get chased to like the highway, you can fail at the controls and then you die basically.
And then that story ends.
And then that story just ends. Like even though it's a main character, the story will end. Like it's one of those. You know how like in most games that pretends to give you options, like the options don't really affect the outcome that much. Yeah. This one they've made sure that every little thing that you do does have consequences at the end.
But I have heard that with Heavy Rain anyway, it's very hard to get the really good ending.
It was. The thing with Heavy Rain though, nothing at the start has that much bearing to the end. Okay. So you can basically
do anything.
Well, not anything, but like a lot of the main decision points is just at that one point.
Yeah,
and then it branches out.
It doesn't have any flow-on effect.
Yeah, it doesn't have any flow-on effect. Whereas in this one, you have a very large flow-on effect from each character, and they interlink with each other as well. So, for example, you, as the detective Joy, you can die and you will come back. That's the one character that you can die and will come back. But if you die too many times, your partner doesn't trust you anymore.
Okay.
And starts to behave very hostile to you.
Okay.
So it's very interesting to see how that, and you can have your partner be really hostile, still have an ending, or you can be, buddies with him and still have a different ending.
Yep.
So there's like a zillion endings for this game. Yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy it. If anyone wants to play it, I highly suggest it. In saying that, it is an interactive movie, so it.
Oh, how long did my scene last for? 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
It was very interesting. I really wanted to play it.
It's and that's the good part. Every scene's very short, so you can just play one scene, and then if you're busy, you can just do something else.
Put it down.
I finished the game in like 2 days.
Okay.
I was just like, I need to know what happens. And they do tell you for the first playthrough, to just go with your gut instinct and see what ending you get.
Yeah.
So just spoiler for everyone. My ending was I led a android revolution. It was all the humans' fault. The humans pushed me towards the revolution. But yeah, it was funny because I had 3 of my friends also playing at the same time.
Yep.
We all kind of like finished playing at the same time, and so we were like, "So what ending did you get?" And it was like, "How did your person go? Did he die?" Or like,
oh god. Did they all have similar endings or
no? We all
different?
got very different endings.
Oh, okay.
I had like a successful rebellion.
Yep.
My friend had a peaceful march, but then got killed.
Oh god.
One other person had a failed rebellion. So yeah, like, and that's the. I mean, to be fair, most people probably would have a similar walkthrough for most of the game.
Yeah.
But as every little decision also makes a bit of difference, so it's very hard to get the exact same ending as another person.
Okay, like on a side note.
Yeah.
Did me saving that fish make any difference at all?
No.
Right?
That was a
red herring.
No, it wasn't a red herring. That was because this was the promo. So the first chapter was actually the promo.
Yeah.
They deliberately put it in as like a kind of
a test to see whether you're a good human, decent, like a decent human being.
Yeah. So the first thing you see is this fish on the floor, and you can pick it up and
put it back in
the
fish tank.
The water, or just leave it there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah, but you pick it up and put it in a tank. Look, no. The fact is, if you didn't see the fish and you walked past, that's one thing.
Yeah.
If you saw the fish, you went to investigate it, and then you make a conscious decision to just leave it there and walk away.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't take that much effort to decide, because they'll ask you, do you want to save it or not?
Yeah.
Why would you? It's still the same number of button presses. So, I don't know.
No. Technically, it's not the same button presses, because one, you actually have to do a twisting motion with the controller, where the other way is just pushing up. So it's slightly easier.
I don't. That's not.
Anyway, so yeah, I highly recommend people play that game if you enjoy that type of thing. If you imagine, it's like I don't know, when when we're kids, we had those like choose your own adventure books. Yeah, that's exactly like that, except in movie form.
It's interesting that you mentioned that very quickly. I was at Kmart the other day, and they had like some book sale kind of thing. Sorry. And one of the books that they had on sale was the Abominable Snowman Choose Your Own Adventure Story. Like, I think it was number 1 in the Choose Your Own Adventure Story books. Okay. So I bought it. Because I remember having a lot of fun as a kid and dying multiple times because I always choose the wrong ending. So I haven't read it yet, but I want to go through that one again and see what my...
see whether your wisdom in your 30 odd years of life has improved your chances at surviving.
Yeah, essentially. Or whether my curiosity will still kill the cat, essentially.
I'm sure it'd still kill us. Anyway, I think we should, before Serena coughs to death.
No, I just drank the Coke and it went down the wrong tube.
Right. Let's start on today's topic. Da, da, da.
And it's a book called Red Rising by Pierce Brown.
Yeah.
before I let Peter go on a rant, because I know he's going to go on a rant, I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed this book a lot. That's why I recommended it to Peter. Peter started off very positively, and I was like so happy because he's like, oh, I think I might enjoy this book, and I'm like, yes, I recommended a book that Peter doesn't completely hate. And then
to be fair, most books we have it's only the one that we disagreed with. My book that we disagreed with, right?
I'm trying to remember what other books we did.
Well, the one that we both hated, Secret. S. Dot.
Oh yeah,
I liked Enders.
Yeah.
Actually, which other books did we do?
I can't remember.
Oh God,
I can't actually remember. We've only done 20 episodes. You'd think we'd remember this.
Actually, I think that's The Dispatcher. I like that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was because it was
but you didn't like audiobook.
I didn't like audiobook, but I liked The Dispatcher.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Red Rising. So, do you want to talk about the premise?
Okay. Yeah. Well, as I said, I like the story, and Peter doesn't, and I was kind of disappointed. Premise of the story. It is in the future. It is set on Mars, and there is a society that is structured around color. Like there's a case system kind of thing. Each different color does a specific kind of job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the reds, which is supposed to be right at the bottom rung. Not that they really know that. Well, they kind of do, but they were told that they're the backbone of society, that they are mining the depths of Mars for this resource that the whole galaxy runs on, like all this a kind of fuel, a fossil fuel kind of thing, that everything requires. And they've been told that Mars needs to be terraformed, and they are working
towards that goal.
Yeah, they are the backbone for this terraforming process, because they need all this fuel, and the Reds are responsible for mining it. And it's dangerous, and it's hard work, and people die really young. And so this is a group of people that these are people you start off with, right? You think that they need to terraform this place, and except the main character finds out that essentially they've been lied to. Mars has been terraformed already,
a while ago.
Quite a while ago. They are essentially the slave caste of the whole society, and so he gets recruited as part of the rebellion kind of thing to infiltrate the gold caste, which is like the gold case, which is like the top group of people, and to infiltrate their group and to take a role,
in the like basically infiltrate their highest
level of government or whatever, so that he can make changes from the inside. Yeah. But the first book is about him infiltrating that group because he's only a kid, right?
Yeah. He's like what, 14? 15?
No, 16 or 17 because he's already married. And he infiltrates their school to go to school with these other kids, essentially. Because if you graduate from this school with flying colours, then you are on a rocket path to
basically come out of the
institute
and be offered a the lead of your own fleet or something.
Yeah, and he wants to do that. So the book is the book cover actually says it. It's a bit of Ender's Game.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to win people's hearts as he's trying to become a leader amongst them. It's a bit like Hunger Games, because you're in this school where people get killed if you are not good enough, essentially. And so I think it's actually quite accurate, that description.
No.
And I think Peter enjoyed a lot of it until it got to Hunger Games section.
Yeah. Okay, so look, the way it's described, like that, was really captivating for me.
Yep.
Like that was like, oh, that sounds a story that I would love to read.
Yep.
And for the first half of the book, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Where you meet Darrow, who's the main character, and then you see him figuring out that they've been lied to, and then he basically transforms himself from a red to a gold, and then learns about the society and then tries to learn how to fit into the society as a gold, because obviously he knows nothing about this world.
Oh yeah, because here when you say the different colors, it's not just a color that's been assigned to you. You actually are physically different. Like as a red, he's like tiny and small, but as a gold, they're genetically modified in a way.
They've been enhanced so that I wouldn't even say they look human anymore. Like
they're supposed to be like over 2 meters tall, and that's short kind of thing. They have gold hair, whereas the red would have red hair and red eyes. The golds would have gold hair, gold eyes. Their tensile strength, their muscles are like, they can lift so much. Their bones are harder to break. All that kind of stuff. That they're different. They're not just genetically modified when they get born. They are born that way because the whole. They've been like, this whole society has been made like thousands of years in the making, right? They're all born this way. They've been changed fundamentally on a DNA level kind of thing.
So obviously Darrow being not one of those, he has to go through this process to basically enhance himself so much that I love it in the book. He actually says he no longer recognizes himself at all, and that's so true because that's
he
what
essentially
happens.
gets like plastic surgery, but on a
much larger scale.
they have to make him taller. They have to change his DNA. They have to
imagine, was it the film Galactica?
I can't remember.
Where even Hulk that goes through, like, because he's not genetically modified, he was born natural, and he has to but he wants to go to the space program, so that's Gattaca,
but he didn't get changed.
No,
he just borrowed someone else's DNA.
But it's like, if he tried to change himself so that he will so that's what happens to our main character. And I really enjoyed reading up to that point.
Well, that's the thing, right? When before we talk about the point afterwards, the plastic surgeon, they're called carvers, right? They had to carve him into
what
this
he looks
new
now.
being, and I was like, some of the wording that he chooses in this is kind of interesting. But like the pinks are the pleasure cast. The violets are the entertainment case, like the singers. It's just interesting though. But okay. I like the world there, right? But
okay.
Then
comes the part where it becomes Hunger Games.
Yeah, like he enters the institute with all these other gold kids, and they essentially get thrown into a backwater part of Mars where there's no technology, there's no electricity, and they essentially have to fight to survive. And they are told that you can enslave other students, and the house, because each kid is put into a house, kind of like a Harry Potter situation. Each house has a different kind of theme, and the houses are based on the different planets in the solar system. And
not the solar system. They're based on gods. They're based on the gold mythological gods, because you have Apollo.
You do.
Minerva, and then
Sorry, I was thinking Mars and Jupiter and Pluto.
Because those are the ones that you hear the most, but there are others.
There are others. So the Roman
based on the
gods.
gods.
And if your house wins at the end of the year. Well, you win when your house is the only one left standing, essentially, and everyone becomes your slave. And this is where the Hunger Game bit comes, because it's brutal and kids get killed. Essentially, the moment you enter the institute, half of them are killed. Because it was like a culling. Because apparently that there is a board of something control. Like there is a government group that is in charge of making sure the population is at a certain number. And out of that population, a certain percentage of them is a really high... like gold. How much percentage of it?
Yeah, they're the cream.
Cream of the crop. Like how many of them are allowed to survive and how many have to die? And this institute is part of this big culling process, right? They have to make sure that only 50% of the kids survive, or less than that, or whatever.
So even though they're all kids of other golds, not all golds are created equal.
They actually have word for it. Like they call them bronzies. Like if you're not gold enough, you're a bronze.
And the likelihood of you surviving if you were a bronzy is not very high, unfortunately. Look, so Yeah, so they go. So he gets into the institute. He gets assigned a house, and then he starts, building relationships within the house, and then they start making, strategics to, take over other houses
Strategies, yeah.
and whatnot, which is fine. The problem,
and this is also where part of the end of game thing happened, because he has to convince other kids that he is worth following.
Yeah. So within each house as well, there is the Primus.
Yeah.
And basically
The leader of the house.
The leader of the house. And you can do certain things that will give you points to become Primus.
Yeah.
And so each of the potential candidates will try to do things so that they can increase their own chances, right? And he tries to convince others that he's the one that they should follow.
Yep.
And there's a bit of
like internal politics here.
Yeah.
Like the idea is that because he's part of House Mars, and one of the things was a lot of different houses, the Primus get chosen very early on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of structure. They get time to organize. And the idea is that House Mars always have trouble with this because there's a lot of infighting. Everyone wants to be like the alpha.
Yeah.
And so they normally destroy themselves before they could. They're never a threat to anyone else because they always
Mars is the dud house, basically.
Yeah, essentially. Like, they're full of anger, and they all burn out before the end of the year, kind of thing.
Yeah, they apparently, the Mars house is known to do that, and people who get chosen to go into Mars house are the people who has that aggro.
Yeah, like they can't control themselves. Oh, here's the thing. One of the main tenets of being a gold, like a upper class gold, not a bronzy, not a pixie. There's like all these different words. That like to be an iron gold is to be able to control yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about self-control. You don't overindulge. You don't, So part of Mars, the problem with Mars is that they indulge.
Yeah.
Right? They can't control their own anger.
Yeah.
They can't control their own greed or their ambition. And that's why they're always looked down on, in a way. What I find interesting about this is that Darrow goes into this institute or this environment or this society thinking all golds are the same, right? They're the top dogs, right? We all have to listen to them. They're all bad guys and stuff like that. And then when he enters this world, he realizes even within that world, there are like a case system. Just because you're a gold doesn't mean
you're the top.
You're the top, right? You can be looked down upon for not being gold enough.
Yeah.
And like he goes in and people look up to him in a way because he has been carved into one of a really good specimen, maybe you could say that.
Yeah.
And he's also really smart.
Yeah, I would highly challenge that thought there.
Well, I find it interesting that a lot of the school smarts, so to speak, they brush past because you get implants, and then you get put, your information. All this information is shoved into your brain while you're sleeping. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could. That's kind of, but like the idea is that he has a lot of street smarts, or that he thinks in a way that other people don't think because he's not brought up in the same way.
He thinks outside the box, and that was his great quality because he isn't from that society. He wasn't born in that society. He thinks things very differently.
He's not stuck in a rut.
He's not stuck in a rut. And I like that part about him, and I agree that part is very interesting for him. The problem though for me is that he isn't that smart. In actual fact, I think he's very, very stupid half the time for the choices he makes.
like examples.
I need to read back the book again. I just don't see him I don't see him leading anything. Half the time you see him telling people, "You should follow me," and because I've got this. Yep. And then he goes like, "Oh, you know what? The great way for me to basically get them to follow me is to hold this in front of them all the time, and people who follow me will get fire, for example." So that, and
he has a certain resource other people don't have.
Yeah, and then he utilizes it so much to the point that everyone turns against him at some point,
because he's withholding resources.
Like with a person whose whole mentality should be trying to win this or trying to, like, he has a very short term fix for everything. Yeah, he doesn't look in. He doesn't plan ahead.
No. Okay.
And that annoys me because like you read a lot of these characters in these books, and you see how they kind of like try and
plan like 7 steps ahead kind of thing.
And he doesn't, which is fine. You know, he's not that.
He's
type
house
of character.
Mars. He doesn't plan that way.
But it's frustrating to read then because it's like, oh my god, I can't see this happening, and oh, I can't see this ending well, and it doesn't. And then you're like, yep, totally saw that coming. So, in story-wise, I up to the part where he goes into institute, I really enjoyed.
Yep.
I thought it was really well written. It really gave the world a very good depth.
Yep.
But then when he goes into the institute, it's like the story
he regresses,
and then everything that he's learned and everything that he's doing to get to that point suddenly takes a second back seat, and then he goes into this Lord of the Flies mentality, and it feels very messy to me.
Okay.
And reading, and there's a lot of fight scenes in the second part of the book where he's in this niche, obviously because they're fighting with each other. I find all of his fight scenes very messy.
Okay.
It's not clear what's happening, and it doesn't pique my interest.
Okay.
And so whenever I'm reading, what's happening between the houses, how they're trying to juggle for positions, it's like, I don't care.
Okay.
So the second part of the book, unfortunately, I didn't enjoy.
Yep.
And it unfortunately ruined the book for me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
When you say that he doesn't think a few steps ahead, that is true. It feels like he reacts to situations instead of planning ahead. And I agree with that. But because after reading this book, I immediately had to read the second one. Because I've already read the series before. Yeah. So after reading the first book, I immediately finished the second and third book. It's interesting that he does grow. Like, in the last book, he manages to win because he had a plan within a plan within a plan, right? Like you thought certain things had happened and he was going to lose, and then you realize, oh no, he had this all planned out. But even then, it wasn't too far-fetched. It wasn't like, oh, he knew everything and he does everything, because there was still a twist in it, and then he realized, oh crap, I could still lose because I didn't plan for this certain thing to happen, and he still managed to scrape by, kind of thing. Now, in this first book, I was willing to, on the second reading, I was willing to give it a lot more leeway because I already knew what was coming. Yeah. It was a long time ago since I read the first book the first time. I can understand how it can be messy in the sense that they had a lot of characters in this story. A lot of characters. And sometimes some people show up for a short period of time.
Fleeting moment, and then they're gone.
They're gone, and they don't come back. Or even if they come back, you're like, wait.
Who was this again?
They were important because, they got introduced. Okay, the way he introduces characters, he doesn't give them a lot of very memorable qualities. Especially when they're in the institute. There's like all these kids, and they'll be like, oh, there's this horse-faced girl. I think it was Cassie or something. I can't remember who it was. And that was not enough for me to remember who Cassie is. And it's not until later on when more things happen involving this character that I remember who Cassie is. Or whatever, regarding any of these characters. And that's the thing. In this first book, most characters don't get enough to do to make them memorable. So you have the carver, you remember him because he did the carving. Dancer, you remember because Dancer was the one involved in...
He kind of explains the world to you, so you kind of remember him because of that.
But as I said, because these characters were introduced fairly slowly, right? You get introduced to Dancer. Dancer explains this whole world to him and how he's been lied to, and there's a big reaction. Then he gets introduced to the carver. What was his name? Mickey, yeah. And so... because Mickey was in charge of transforming him, he has a big role. But then the moment he gets put into the institute, you get introduced to like 20 kids in one shot.
Yep.
You can't remember them.
No.
You remember like one or two, the 2 or 3 that is constantly around him.
Yeah.
Everyone else,
It's a throwaway, basically.
yeah, they're
for a bit.
throwaway. And after the first book, you're like, well, they go their separate ways, right? Do I have to remember them? They're forgettable, and none of them matter. And it feels like, oh, why did you put so many characters in here? They don't mean crap all.
Yeah.
But then when you read the second and third book, and these people come back, and they have a lasting effect. Some of these characters, yes, they were like a throwaway character in the first book.
Yep.
But it makes sense in real life. Like kids that you met in school will come back.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is not as big as this world, surprisingly, even though they had talk about millions of people living on these planets.
Yeah.
Because the gold caste is a tip of a pyramid.
Yeah, so
right?
there's not actually that many of them.
Yeah, they're iron gold as well, right?
Yeah.
There's only so many ruling families in this society, and all these ruling families sent kids to the school, right? So all these kids are people you need to rub shoulders with when you move into society. So they come back, and childhood grudges makes a difference, right? Like this whole society is based on what you did in school, kind of thing, right? And the family feuds are dependent upon what happened in school as well. So people who you didn't even give 2 craps about in the first book suddenly have this much bigger role. And so because I read the second and third book, I was willing, and I knew what was happening even when I was reading the first book. I was willing to forgive a lot of this. And in actual fact, by rereading the first book after knowing what happens in subsequent books,
it's interesting to see what they did in the first book.
It's like, this character got barely mentioned, but
he was there.
They
existed.
They were pretty important later on. It was interesting that one of the things that they say about writers is that they have to be very efficient about their use of characters. They try to fit as much things in as small a number of cast as they can, so people don't have to remember that many names. And which is why sometimes when you read a book, it's like, well, of course is character C or D, because it can't be someone like 30 people off in this cast. We only want to remember these 7 people, so it's always about these 7 people. The killer in a mystery will always be one of the 7 people that we introduced at the start. Whereas in this book, they made it slightly realistic in the sense that people you meet that you think in your life, you meet someone and it seems like they're nothing, but then later on they become your other half or something, right? Like when sometimes it's possible to meet people and not understand how big of an influence they have in your life later on.
And I get that. And that's fine. But when you're reading it as a book, and as a reader trying to get your head around all these characters, what it means is that I don't remember any of them.
Yeah, I understand.
So for me, when I was reading this, now that we're talking about the characters, I don't remember any of the characters actually. I can barely remember the 2 mains, Darrow and Mustang.
Okay. You can't remember Casillas or Severo?
I remember Severo because he's probably the only character that I liked in the book. I loved Severo. He's got a very...
He's so disgusting, though.
I know, right? But it makes him memorable because you remember him. Cassius, it just felt like I never felt his character was very consistent.
Because at the start, it seems like he's like this playboy kind of like princeling, and then later on he becomes like a really good friend. Like, oh, we're gonna be brothers, and we're gonna,
But then, then he also has this like sentimental side for his own brother, like his real brother. But he's also this tyrant at some point. Like his character, he felt whatever he needed to be at the time. I felt that was him.
Okay.
So his character didn't feel real to me as a character. And like there's so many other characters in the book that I just have like.
Oh yeah, no,
I don't care about.
No, in the first book, there's no like. I wouldn't say, oh, these characters should be given a bigger role, like because there really wasn't. They didn't matter. And I'm like, it seems like there's a lot of fluff here, but at the same time, I can't see how they could have written this first book
without
not introducing any of them,
Yeah.
and then bringing them in the second
Yeah.
book and say,
No,
they were part of
look,
the institute.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just felt like if he was going to do something like that, where
Yeah.
he's like, then he needs to
Give them more to do.
or make them slightly different from each other. At the moment, they're or as you say, introduce 20 kids,
Yep.
but not give them a distinction.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. A one-liner. Oh, she's like the fastest one out of us all.
yeah, like,
Or that girl has a horse face. And
like,
that was it.
Like, I feel like if you are planning something for them later on, like, look, I get your real life analogy, and that's fine. This isn't real life, though.
Yeah,
This is
no,
a book.
fair enough. Yeah.
And as a reader, I don't appreciate you kind of throwing these characters in just so that you can see. See, I've planned them all along.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
No.
It's lazy writing to me.
Sure.
I feel like, you know, it's
like you didn't think too clearly about what they are, what they look like, or what their personality is.
But I know what I need them to do later on, so
Yeah.
that's why I need to put them in there first.
Yeah.
It feels like that to me.
Sure.
So yeah, I didn't enjoy it because of that.
Yep. No. I completely understand that because I think the other dimension here is because you read the book.
Yeah.
I listened to the podcast. So I had an extra level because the voice actor gave them each individual distinct voices kind of thing.
This is one thing that that you mentioned, because supposedly the Reds and the Golds speak differently.
Yeah.
And in the audiobook, the Reds spoke with an Irish accent, and the Golds speak with a British accent, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense to me now that you mention it.
Yeah.
I had trouble kind of picturing when they were talking, because they were saying, when he was learning to become a gold, they were telling him not to say certain words, and like you have to speak differently, speak in high lingo. Was it? I had trouble kind of picturing that at that
because
time.
they just say, "Oh, speak in high lingo."
Yeah,
what does high lingo
mean?
mean?
Exactly. You're just like, I don't know, like what's high lingo?
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, audiobook would have helped. In that sense, because they would be able to, you know, give you something that that sounds different. Okay, I can hear the difference. So
no, and also it also gave a different. It gave the history a little bit of a depth, like the idea that the Reds were like slaves. They were they were lied to. They were used, but they were a hardy people, right? And they danced even when they're like down in the luck. And they talk about the veil and all that stuff. And then you're like, wait, they're an Irish people? Like then you think about the whole revolution bit, you know, and you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting that they decided to do that, voice them like that. Because although the book did kind of mention that they were from Ireland or whatever, they didn't really like use that much. They didn't actually say, no, the Golds are from Britain or anything. They didn't say any of that. But because they did use the accents, it felt interesting. And I feel like I need to mention, because I told Peter this before, you don't really see these characters in the first book. But there are people who are in the outer planets, like past, you know, you have Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto and all of that stuff. And they don't come to Mars for the Institute. Like, this Institute that they're in are mainly for people on Mars. And all the stuff that they put these kids through, kids outside the belt don't go through this. Like, they have a different schooling system. It's less brutal. You don't have the rape. You don't have the slavery or any of that stuff. So it's a different community. And the Golds out there, they speak with a New Zealand accent, and I find that kind of cute. I'm like, oh, okay. So because of that, I think the characters, although they were still forgettable, like a lot of the kids are only memorable after you read the second and third book. And even then, sometimes the names just kind of like slip by you, because all the howlers, there's so many howlers. They kind of like, you know, it's just a group of lunatic characters, right? You kind of bunch them up and just think of them in one group.
But at least it gave you a bit more to go on.
But I do agree with you on the Casillas thing, now that you mention it. he's not very consistent, because when you think about him at the start, he is the whole, oh, you know, you're a fine chap. You know, why don't you join me and my friends to go, what was it? They're going to play some sports or whatever it was. And then when they get to the institute, I think in a way you kind of see him show a bit more depth.
Yeah.
Because of where they are, like the friendship becomes a little bit more real.
Yeah.
Whereas before when they were taking the test and they meet each other for the first time, it felt like he only became friends with Darrow because Darrow has such a good score.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a very shallow, like, oh, he might be able to help me. Right? Like this is like rubbing shoulders and trying to like establish connections. And then when you actually go into the institute, it's like becomes a real friendship. And that moment when he talks to Roke and to Darrow about, you guys are my real brothers. But no matter what happens, when this institute is finished, there will be a place in my family for you. At that point, I was thinking, this is good. Like, I want to see this future where the three of them work towards making a better world.
Yeah. But
it doesn't happen, right? Like, that was like, this is like the first...
early part in the institute.
Yeah,
kind of
like,
thing.
no, you can even see, like, this happens in all the books, right? You see how there could be a way that this would have been really good.
Yeah.
Like, this could have been the perfect, like, not shortcut, but if everything went well, this would have been perfect. But things didn't go well. It gets all screwed up. And you're like, oh... If only they kept their friendship and then that continued. That would be fantastic. So when the second book happened, there was another point where it was like, this is fantastic. But you're like, oh, wait, this reminds me of the first book. Is something going to happen? And you're like, there's this dread. And you read the thing, feeling this dread. But then when the thing actually happens, it's way worse than you thought it would be. And you're like, oh, he did it again. Like, you dashed my hopes.
You gave me this, you dangled this a carrot in front of me, and then you cruelly took it away and ripped it to shreds. Not just took it away, but ripped it to shreds in front of me.
And you're like, no. And they do it the same with the third one. But it doesn't get old, surprisingly, because even though things go really bad, and I said this before, it reminds me slightly of like the Red Wedding. He doesn't do it the same way Red Wedding does. He doesn't kill off people you really love. They do kill off characters you don't think that they will kill off, but Darrow doesn't die, right? Like you don't invest all your emotions on these people and then to have them ripped out from underneath you. So I don't get frustrated that way.
Okay.
But it does mean it feels like there are stakes. I don't know whether the first book feel like there was much at stake, but the second and third book, the stake seems higher because as we mentioned, this is just the institute. This is just the school. He can't really screw up too badly, except if they find out who he is.
Yeah.
Right. The other things, because he's actually working towards his goal. He's actually trying to help the Reds, or he's trying to help
make the society
the
better.
Sons of Ares or whatever. There are actual stakes here.
Yep.
But as in the school, I think the worst part was when he found out.
Titus?
Yeah, Titus was
another Red.
It was another Red who was also carved, and it was like, oh, you've got to kill him.
Yep.
You can't.
Yeah.
I'm like, because he was really terrible. Like,
right.
When you think about, you're a bunch of kids, and you're
condoning rape and murder, and
like disfigurement, like getting your ears cut off and stuff. Okay, if there's one thing I like about this book is like, nothing is permanent. Like, you could get your arm lopped off and they'll put it back on. Yeah. I know how it could be like, oh, but that's kind of cheating in a way. But come on, to be honest, when you can carve someone the way they could, it only makes sense that you could just stick an arm back on with no loss of emotions or anything.
Of all the characters in the first book only, if you just going by the first book, who would be your favorite character?
First book only. I actually like Darrow. I actually do.
Okay. Yeah.
he is a flawed character though. Yeah. And
I think you have to be a flawed character for it to be interesting, though.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, like, if you're always great, then
yeah.
it's hard to make you. It's hard to make you have setbacks, right? Because if you're always great,
and like if you're correct from the start, there's no growth.
Yeah.
Like I liked seeing how he learns that even his view on the golds was slightly
skewed, and
like you know, he was thinking how golds see reds as stupid and they shouldn't, and at the same time he shouldn't see golds as all cruel and uncaring, and you know, because they're individuals, and I like to see that part of it a little bit, and I like to see how even though he gains their like every time he thinks he has a hurdle he passes, like oh, I need to earn their respect, oh, I got their respect now, but now I have other issues, like so what if Mars believe in me now, I now need to fight other people outside, and then oh, now I can fight the people outside, and I realize that my own team don't trust me, and I have this issue where Bologna's going to try and kill me. You know, there's just... I like how the author does put him through the grinder sometimes.
Yeah. I think I would have enjoyed this book a lot more if that part came earlier. I find that... I think one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy this book at the end is because the Institute part took up way too much. And not necessary, I thought. Like, it felt like... because he knows that that's a good point to stop and start the second book at a later point. I felt he padded out the Institute too much.
No. I know why you would think that, but when the third book rolls around and all the hits the fan, so to speak, there's a moment where him and Casillas watches videos of from when they were in the Institute, and they reminisce about it. And as a reader, because you have seen all the crap that they put each other through, and Roke and Severo and what's her name? Mustang. Like everyone's put everyone through a lot of stuff, and they look back at the Institute and say, "That's actually the simpler time." Right? That was easy. Yeah. That was nothing. We, as readers, would also feel that. We'd be like, I actually wouldn't mind going back to that time before they before they had to be embroiled in all the politics, before they had to have wars that don't just span this tiny little valley on Mars, but it spans through the whole solar system, right? Where thousands and thousands of people die, not just like a couple of kids. Then you're like, there's a reminiscence, there's a nostalgia, and I don't know whether you could get that nostalgia if you cut the Institute shorter.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So at the same time, I understand why it's too long. Yeah. Like, just like how you said with the students, it's like, you just threw a bunch of kids at me. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, if they didn't talk about the kids with individual names, he can't bring them back. It's like, if you cut the Institute short,
they can't reminisce
about it. So it's like, would it be fair to say that these three books shouldn't be separated into three books? It should be one big thing, but then it'll be too long.
It would be way too long.
Yeah. So it's like, this is one of those series I think you have to read as a whole.
I felt like if that's the case, I would prefer... Look, obviously I haven't read the second and third book, right? Yeah. I needed something more to bring me to want to read the second book.
Yeah.
Because I basically lost all interest to read the second book by the end of it. Yeah. Because he finishes the Institute, they wins. He technically wins, for a better word. And he gets the...
the standard.
Well, he basically gets an offer by the
Augustus,
by the big bad in the first book to come work for him. Yep, and that's it, right? Yep. And then he thinks like, and you see him going like, "This is the guy that I wanted to kill. This is the guy that I hated, but this is the guy that can also help me fulfill my destiny. So I'm going to follow him." Yep. And that ends the book, right? I needed something more for me to want to see him grow.
Yep.
Because the Institute kind of really dulled my interest in
Yep.
the book, I never had that urge to kind of follow on.
I think the thing is, because in the first book, you know, you had the whole Hunger Game part. You know, all the kids are involved in trying to win and defeat each other. But he finds out this is not the way to win, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to follow their rules. He's going to play it differently. He's going to amass this big army through not slavery, but asking all these kids just to follow him. And he's not going to get involved in all these kids' squabbles.
Yeah.
He's going to completely defeat the teachers instead, right? Like, he doesn't follow their games or their rules. And he wins because he thinks outside the box.
Yeah.
I feel like from that point, it's like, oh, maybe even the author is getting bored with the kids. Probably not that, but it's just like, where the kids are still squabbling over the small things, Darrow's already thought of something else and just doing completely something different. And he's thinking outside of the Institute. That was interesting to me. And I felt maybe he should have shifted that earlier.
Yeah, like if the focus, like he still had the focus on you know, the kids, but have him had that epiphany a bit earlier so that I wasn't going through that whole.
Oh yeah, because he had to go through
trudge.
Tactus. He had to go. Was it Tactus? No, Titus.
Yeah, so he had to
Go through
Titus,
Titus.
Tactus.
Uh-huh.
Actually, there were two. Like, yeah. There was two.
There was a lot of things he had to go through that didn't kind of seem like it mean anything in the end, because he wasn't playing the game in the end.
Yeah.
But he was involved in the game for such a long time, and it seems like all wasted effort in the end.
And because like half of them, you know, died before the first book ended, so it's like he could have at least cut out like one or two of them, I reckon.
Well, I'm actually quite glad that he got through the Jackal fairly quickly.
Oh yeah.
Right, I thought, because Jackal was supposedly this big bad, like scary kid.
Yeah.
He thinks like completely on a different level. Every other kid is afraid of him.
Yeah.
I thought there would be this big drawn out thing because you know he's taken so long with everyone else.
Yeah, I know, right?
But it's like, oh no, he discovered who he was fairly early on. I thought he was a bit
underwhelming.
yeah, but it was very cruel to the Jackal for like the Jackal hasn't done anything to him yet.
Yeah, I know, right?
But he's gonna impale his hand, like Daryl impales the Jackal's hand into the table with a knife.
Yeah, and
force the Jackal to cut off his own hand to escape.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not sure you're a good guy here, Daryl. That's pretty brutal. And for someone that dangerous, I don't know whether you should make him your enemy, like that, because you're not killing him. You either kill him off.
Yeah, I know, right?
You don't let him survive.
That's why I'm saying, you know, at some points he's also not very smart. I was like, you should just kill the guy. Anyway. Yeah. So look, I can see why you enjoy the book, and I can see if I had continued to read the second and third book, it probably would have changed my view on the first book. Unfortunately, I don't think I will read the second and third book. I had enough trouble finishing the first one.
Fair enough.
I would recommend people to read it though, because I think, look, some people might enjoy. I mean, it's a good story. It's got a good. It's got a good background. It's got a good lore to the story. It's got a very well developed world. I just didn't like how the second part of the book kind of remained too stagnant for me. So yeah.
But I would recommend the audiobook, if only to listen to the different accents. The only bad part about the audiobook, you know that song, EO's song?
Oh, yeah.
He sings it.
Oh, God.
And it's a very long song.
Yeah, no, right.
It's a very long song. Now, at the end of the audiobook, they actually have the song sung by a singer, a woman who sings it. And it actually sounds not too bad. Yeah. It's just that when he's singing it, I hate songs and poems in the middle of a book.
Yeah.
If it's a printed book, I can skip for it.
Yeah,
because
no, right.
most of the time, the book, the audio, like the song or the poem, don't mean anything. Yeah. They really don't mean anything, and I don't understand why they put it in there. I don't know whether authors are trying to show that they are
righteous.
I don't know. I don't know.
I have craft.
But with this song, I don't know whether it's a real song that actually exists, because it does sound like an Irish song.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know how that works. So that was excruciating, and I just like fast forward, like 10 seconds still playing, 10 seconds still playing, 10 seconds.
It is a very long song.
I'm like, keep going. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like 2 minutes.
It is a very long song. It has a lot of verses.
Oh yeah. Did you just? I guess you just skipped.
I
through
just
it.
skipped it. I read the first verse and I was like, and I looked at the second verse and I'm like, wait, is this going to be like this all the way through?
You just
like,
skip.
Yeah, so it's like a page and a half of like lyrics. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so that's my take on Red Rising.
Yep. And my take
and
on
your take on Red Rising. As I said, I would recommend people reading it, just because I do think the world's very well done.
Yep.
Just if I had anything to say, just the second part is a bit drawn out and a bit stagnant. So if you have all three, that may be better. So if you just keep reading, maybe that would,
yeah, it keeps going, because like the next book, like
picks up very.
The first like prologue or whatever, it's directly connected to the previous book.
Okay.
It's like, 2 minutes after that. So
Yeah.
it all just keeps going.
Right.
But then prologue and first episode is like 3 years.
Oh, okay.
You're like, first chapter, I'm like, oh, okay, that jumped.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. They introduce a character in the second book pretty much straight off the bat. And you think she means nothing.
Yeah.
But she stays, and
Okay.
she's very important.
Okay.
And no, I found it very. No, I just like it, and there's a fourth book out, which is like 15 years after the first three books. Like, I don't know how many years, but it's just a substantial amount of years.
Yeah.
And just like how at the end of the first book, it seems everything although it all went to hell.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a
ray of hope.
Yeah, like he
sees the
he sees the path. He's doing it right, and then the second book comes along, and you realize no, it didn't really go according to plan either. Like by the end of the third book, he's done what he's done, and you think, oh, this is all going to work out, and then apparently with the fourth book, you find out that didn't actually work out either, and I'm like, what? Like, because there's a substantial time break between the third and fourth book. I bought the fourth book. And I don't want to read it just yet.
Yeah.
Because I read all three books in one go, and I'm now really... At first, I was really excited to read the fourth book. But then you're telling me that things are not going well.
Yeah.
It kind of drags me down. Like, I feel this dread.
You feel like, I've got to go through this again.
Yeah, like, do I want to start this where everything is screwed up? I want to read something a little lighter. It's not like this is very heavy, but it's just... It's not airy-fairy light.
Yeah.
At the same time,
I think the problem is, if you're going to end a story in a trilogy and then you end on a particular note, as a reader, you want to hope that note continues.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching Star Wars, the original, and like supposedly they all live happily ever after, and then the new stuff come out, and you find out Leia and Han Solo had divorced, whatever. Like their lives are like in shambles. Their kid has gone on to the dark side, and everything is screwed up. And that Luke is like hiding in somewhere, and you're like,
that's not what I envisaged.
This is not good at all.
I feel like that sometimes it will happen like that. Like when a writer kind of revisits a world and they're like, oh, how can I write more on this now?
Well, they have to screw up, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's nothing else to write.
Right.
It's kind of like how we were saying about Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I wish they didn't revisit it, because it kind of was like on a good note. Like, there's dinosaurs in the world. They're not anywhere near humans, but at least they exist and they're doing their own thing. Now they bring them back, and all these dinosaurs are constantly getting screwed over, and I'm like, oh,
poor dinosaurs.
Poor dinosaurs. Like, I don't want to be anywhere near them because they'll just eat me. But it's nice to know that dinosaurs exist somewhere. No, it's kind of cool. No.
Okay. I think we should do our.
Well, we need to explain what we're going to do next week.
Oh yeah.
Next month.
Yeah.
This is another book that I read a little while ago because Peter recommended it to me.
Actually, didn't recommend it. I just said I bought it because I haven't read it yet.
Right. No, it's an author that
It's an author we both liked.
Yes.
And so I bought this book a while back when I saw that he had a new series out. I was like, I liked his stuff, so let's buy it.
It's a book that he had on his desk for 6 months.
Yeah.
That I see every single time I come to record,
Recording.
and I ask him how well, whether it's good. Each time he tells me he hasn't read it yet, and then I got annoyed, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read it now because I can't wait for you to read it. So it's called Zeros, and it's essentially about a bunch of kids with superpowers. And it's kind of cool. I liked it. There was also a second book, which we could talk about, next time as well. But I think I've discovered that with Scott Westerfield, because, you also introduced Leviathan to me.
Oh, yeah,
There's also Scott Westerfield.
Yeah.
Apart from the Pretties series, I don't actually really like his other books.
Ah.
The Blue Hour,
Midnight
Hour, whatever that one is. I never liked it. I've read the first book, couldn't do more than that.
Yep.
Leviathan, I couldn't read more than the first 5 chapters. Zeros, I can't read past the first book. I don't know why. I think I like the author, but I don't seem to like his books very much.
Yeah.
I really like Pretties, though.
Yeah.
I really like that series. So I don't understand why I don't like his other stuff. So we'll talk about that next time. Maybe if I force myself to read the second book, I might like it. It's just the start of the second book that was like...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we'll do that.
So, Zeros.
Yep.
Actually, it's not just by Scott Westerfield. Though. It's actually it's a collaboration.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There are 2 more other authors, which I can't remember at the moment. But we'll let you know next time.
The book is right behind you right now. It's just right there.
I can't read it. It's too far away.
You could pick it up. It's not that far. You'd reckon that Peter is a quadriplegic or something from the way he speaks sometimes. It's just right. Okay, fine. I'll put the comment. I'll put the authors in. I can live and look it up online. It doesn't matter. I'll put it in the show notes. Okay, so closing. You can find show notes where I will put the names of the other authors on our website, www.triggerpointfm.com. You can find us on Twitter at triggerpointfm. You can email us at triggerpointfm@gmail.com. And that's it.
Because you no longer...
Update on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, no, it automatically cross-posts to Facebook, but I'm not gonna...
She's
I deleted Facebook off my phone, and I have to say, I have never been more relaxed. I don't spend my time thinking, I should go and have a look and see what other people are doing right now. Or I don't have to read other people's comments and then get infuriated at the stupidity of some people sometimes. Because sometimes you look at it and you're like, really? I wouldn't think you'd think that way.
True.
Because there was a thing about, there's always been the whole freedom of speech thing. And so a lot of people say, I should be able to say anything I want because freedom of speech. Yeah. And I was listening to Hello Internet the other day, and they were mentioning something really interesting. Freedom of speech is the freedom to choose not to say something. It's not the freedom to say anything. Just because you can say it doesn't mean you should, because you might be a dick. So removing Facebook from my phone means I don't need to see those anymore.
Fair enough.
And then I'm like,
So anyway, that's it for us for this recording
month.
This month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? We've been really good. We've been doing it once a month now.
Yeah. In saying that,
touch wood.
Don't have any wood here.
Paper, tissue. Yeah. So we will see you next month.
Next month.
Bye.
Bye.